There are monsters that live in the woods, and there are monsters that live in a city. But the most terrifying kind of monster is the one that lives inside of a system designed to protect us. Imagine being strapped to a gurney. You can feel the cold metal against your back. You can smell the antiseptic in the air. You've had your last meal. You said your last words to a priest who doesn't believe you. In 50 hours, a chemical cocktail is going to stop your heart because the state of Illinois is convinced you are the you are a preserved shark. Perverse shark. Whoopsies. But then the doors swing open. A group of children, or at least they look like children to you, just journalism students with a tape recorder, tell you they found the truth. They tell you that you're free. The world cheers, the laws change, and you become a symbol of everything that's right about the search for justice. But here's the high fright for the night. Here's the part that keeps the lawyers and the judges awake at 3 in the morning. What if those students didn't find the truth? What if they just found a convenient lie? What if, in the process of saving a man, they hunted down another man, trapped him in a room, and broke his mind until he confessed to a crime he never really committed? This is a story about blood on the bleachers. But it's also a story about the blood on the hands of people who claim to be the good guys. This is the case of Anthony Porter. And by the time we're finished tonight, you won't know who to trust, and you won't know who to fear. Welcome to Night Frights. And before we begin, we're going to take a nice little puff and toke to relax our minds before we dive directly into madness. Cheers. Now, a little disclaimer before we continue. The following is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It covers a real-life legal case involving graphic violence, the loss of life, and complexes of the American justice system. The views and theories presented are based on public records, trial transcripts, and investigative reporting. High Frights did not claim to hold the ultimate truth in this case at all, as it remains one of the most hotly contested legal battles in history. Listener discretion is highly advised. On August 15th of 1982, the city of Chicago was breathing through the stifle heat wave. In the early 1980s, the South Side was a vibrant community. But it was also a place defined by invisible lines, territories held up by gangs like the Black Pea Stones and the gangster disciples. Sorry. Jerry Hillard was 18 years old. He was an athlete, a track star with dreams that extended far beyond the park. That night, he was with 19-year-old Marilyn Green. They were doing what teenagers do, looking for a quiet spot away from the city noise, when they chose the upper bleachers of the Washington Park pool. At this point, it was 1 a.m, so the pool was closed, but the park was never truly empty. The shots were sudden. Jerry Hillard was hit twice, including a fatal shot to the head. He died instantly in the bleachers, while Marilyn Green was terrified and tried to bolt. She made it down the bleachers and down towards the street, but the shooter followed. He was systematic. He caught up to her and fired 3 more times. Marilyn was found nearby, clinging to life, but she would pass away shortly after arriving at the hospital. Within hours, the Chicago Police Department arrived. They had bodies, and they had a park full of shadows. One from the first responding officers, Anthony Leance, actually saw a man running south near the bleachers. He stopped and frisked him. That man was named Anthony Porter. At the time, Leance found no weapon on him and let him go. This detail is often forgotten. The police actually had Porter in their hands minutes after the murder and released him because he was clean. But the police soon found two key witnesses, Henry Williams and William Taylor. They had been swimming in the pool illegally after hours. When the police first talked to Taylor, he said that he didn't see anything. He said that it was dark and he was in the water. He only heard the pops of the weapon. But Chicago PD of 1982 was under immense pressure. They brought Taylor in for more questioning, and for 17 hours he was held. By the end of that window, Taylor's story has shifted. He didn't just hear the shots, he said that he saw Anthony Porter pull the trigger from a distance of less than 2 feet away. The trial of Anthony Porter was a masterclass in what we now call tunnel vision. The prosecution's case rested almost entirely on testimony of William Taylor and Henry Williams. Williams claims that just before the shooting, Porter had approached him and put the gun to his forehead and robbed him for only $2. Porter's defense was a disaster. His attorney, Akim Gersel, was paid a flat fee of $10,000, money that Porter's family struggled to raise. Gersel reportedly didn't visit the crime scene once. He didn't hire investigators to see if William Taylor could actually see the bleachers from the pool, and he didn't realize that until the trial was underway that one of the jurors attended the same church as the victim's mother. How messed up is that, though? I just realized what this. Wow. Imagine working on your own child's case, like as a juror. That has to like mess at you fundamentally, or not like mentally. I mean, the prosecution painted Porter as a perverse shark, a predator who killed for sport. Porter, whose IQ was later measured at 51, sat in the courtroom largely unable to participate. He didn't understand the legal jargon. He didn't understand that his life was being weighed on a scale that was already tipped. In 1983, the jury returned a verdict of guilty. The judge sentenced him to death, expressing no doubt. Anthony Porter was then sent to Menard Correctional Center to wait for the state to kill him. For 15 years, Porter sat on death row. But by 1998, he was just 54 hours away from lethal injection. He had been fitted for his brutal suit. He had been asked his final meal. Then, the Illinois Supreme Court granted a stay, not because of new evidence, but because of his IQ. They needed to determine if he was mentally competent enough to be executed. This pause gave David Protess, a journalism professor at Northwestern University, and his students the time they needed. The students did what the police hadn't. They went to the park at 1 a.m. They realized that from where William Taylor had been swimming, A massive concrete wall and fence blocked the view of the upper bleachers. Taylor couldn't have possibly seen the shooter from where he was at. They tracked Taylor down, and he confessed that the police had pressured and threatened him to name Porter. But the students wanted the real killer. They found a lead, Alstroy Simon. Simon had been a suspect earlier on because of Marilyn Green's mother had told the police that Marilyn was having trouble with Simon's wife, Inez Jackson. On February 3rd of 1999, a private investigator, Paul Chiolino, apologies, and the students went to Milwaukee to confront Alstroy Simon. Now, this is where the story takes a dark turn. Cololio used what he called a ruse. He showed Simon a video of a man, actually an actor, claiming to be a witness who saw Simon pull the trigger. Cololino told Simon the police were on their way, and that was his only chance to avoid the death penalty, was to confess and claim self-defense. Simon, who was reportedly high on some of that lovely, lovely no-no-snow at the time, eventually confessed on camera. Solonio later bragged about the tactic, saying, "Well, we just bull rushed him mentally. He couldn't recover." Anthony Porter walked out of prison a free man in 1999. His release led Governor George Ryan to a halt all executions in Illinois. Porter was considered a hero. Alstroy Simon was sentenced to prison for 37 years. But in 2013, the case imploded. Alstroy Simon recanted. He revealed that the lawyer provided to him by Northwestern team, his name was Jack Rimlin, shared an office with Paul Solonio. This was a massive conflict of interest. Rimlin had allegedly pressured Simon to stick to the false confession to protect the extradition of Porter. Cook County State's attorney, Anita Alvarez, reopened the case. After a year-long investigation, she didn't just release Simon, she condemned the Northwestern team. She called their tactics coercive, apologies, and potentially in violation of Simon's constitutional rights. The investigation found that the students had ignored witnesses who still insist that Porter was the killer. They found that the quote-unquote new witnesses they had used against Simon had been promised money from book and movie deals. Later on, in 2014, Alstroy Simon was then freed. So who really killed Jerry and Marilyn? If you look at the 2005 civil trial, where Anthony Porter sued the city of Chicago for his wrongful, quote-unquote, wrongful conviction, the jury actually found favor in the police. They believed the original investigation was correct and that Porter was, in fact, the killer. Anthony Porter later on died of an opioid overdose in 2021. Alstroy Simon passed away shortly after. Both men spent years in cages for the same crime. One was nearly executed, while the other was framed by the very people who claimed to be seeing justice. The high fright here isn't just isn't just the murder that happened in the park, it's the realization that the system can be manipulated from both sides. We traded one potentially wrong conviction for a confirmed wrongful confession. In the end, Jerry Hillard and Marilyn Green never got justice. They became footnotes in a political war over the death penalty. Until next time, stay spooky, and we'll see you next time. Bye.